everyone knows, I like to start on time. I'm Amy Toner, the Executive Director of the NATSO Foundation, and it is my pleasure to welcome our hosts today with History and Herald. They're big supporters of NATSO, and we're so lucky. You guys have spent so much time on this presentation. It's going to be awesome. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Jimmy. And I should say everyone's lines are muted. I'm going to take questions. We're recording, and the slides are going to be available. Okay, now off to you, Jimmy.
Thank you, Amy.
Welcome.
First, Diane, if you want to go on, I want to introduce our first person is Diane Sparks. She's our VP of Operations here with History and Heraldry. And then we have a special guest. We have Maria Otome. She's category manager at Envo, and she brings a unique experience because she has worked as a buyer in a big box store. So she's seen both sides of the aisle and buying products from different vendors. This is a little bit of some of the subjects we're going to cover here. We're going to give you a little bit of insight, and then we're going to provide a lot of resources at the end where you can go out, find new vendors and products out there in the marketplace. These are just a few of the things that we will cover. We know these are some of the challenges that are going out in the marketplace. And especially this year, we get a lot of new challenges added. Seems like just about every day the news comes on. So these are some things that we want to hit on. I think Maria has a few things on these.
Yeah, I think, being in this industry, there's a lot of feedback, not only that you may get from, your corporate office, but even in your field. And coming from a big box where I had like 30,000 square foot buildings to, 6,000, if I'm lucky, square foot buildings, it could be really, really hard to deal with the space issue. And, to that, I'd have to say, there's a lot of different opportunities to really maximize your space, whether it be with permanent fixtures, in and out fixtures, there's spinners, CUs. And I think it's important that you work with your vendors to really decide what's the best choice for you. And there's plenty of vendors out there in distributions and distribution centers who also have people there that can work with you to make sure you can get the right fit for your space. Increased theft. If I could see everybody, I would say raise your hand if you've heard, oh no, we can't buy that because it gets stolen. I literally heard that about 4 times yesterday in 2 different stores that I was in. And while theft and shrink is an issue, I think, it all depends on a plethora of other things that are operational as well. But it is about, proper placement. If you do have a high shrink stores or something, you can put a little closer, is there mirrors in the store that can kind of help with the line of sight? But there is a way around it, I promise. So if you do hear, oh no, we can't buy that, it gets stolen, we can help you out. But even with I think a lot of people are worried about gift buying only because, we're travel plazas and convenience stores and it's not really common to really see these things, but that kind of is what sets you apart from everybody else. And the best thing I can say is test. You got to test, whether it be in different volume stores and different footprints and different areas. You can definitely get a good gauge of what you're looking for. So don't be afraid. You can always run a test. Plenty of manufacturers, vendors, and distribution centers are willing to help you with tests. So to those who are a little afraid, there's a way to do it. So I think that's all I have on these.
Okay.
So we want to talk a little bit about suggestive selling. So it can be simple things like saying, have you seen our holiday section or Mother's Day section? People are in there. You want to make sure if you've had some new things that you suggest some opportunities. If you have new arrivals, maybe you just added a gift section, you may want to say, did you see our new section of gifts? You might want to check those out. People are looking for new things, and if you point those things out, it will help with your customers coming back for more, because every time they come in, your people are suggesting new things. Also helps a little bit with theft because you're acknowledging that you see them. So it helps tackle some of the things that we saw in the beginning. Maria, any?
No, I 1,000% agree with that. You know, even just saying hello when people walk in, and then when you're closing out at the register. I mean, this is also a customer service piece too. That's, you know, super important in retail. But just showing them that there's something else, or just telling them that there's something else. Because I don't know about you, but you know, if I'm addressed in a store walking in, I immediately feel like I have to buy something. I don't know if that's just a me thing, but if I'm addressed like, "Hi, how are you today?" I'm like, "Oh, I gotta buy something here," and usually I do. But I think it is really important, and it's all about educating your staff, and it starts from the top in the at the store manager level as well.
One of the things we want to talk about in suggestive selling is how it boosts revenue. It costs so much to get a new customer, and by acknowledging them, introducing them to a new experience, keeps them coming back and buying that. And that is a lot cheaper in cost to you in helping you sell more and increase your basket size. So just suggesting engages you with your customers. And we feel that's very important to increasing your sales.
Absolutely.
Maria, anything?
No, I'm 100% agree. So these are some, and again, we're looking at, you know, edible items versus giftables, but it could always translate over. We started running suggestive cells here at Onvo last summer, and we expanded it tremendously throughout the months to the point where Kellanova, who produces Pringles, Rice Krispie treats, Nutri-Grain bars, all that stuff, we are continuously doing suggestive selling contests with them. Um, we did it through a contest. It doesn't mean it has to be a contest. You don't have to spend any more money, but a lot of vendors may be, you know, interested if you're willing to promote their product in paying for, you know, additional gift cards, or maybe even getting special promotions, et cetera, et cetera. But these are just some ideas of how you can get stuff in depending on the space, you know, going from a little counter unit on the right on the register to a bigger rack or a dump in if you have the room on the sales floor. And if you go to the next slide, this kind of showcases more of your general merch giftables. So I started putting queue lines in our stores last year. This one's a little bit bigger than some of them because this is our new store. But all it is impulse, novelty, and we'll talk more about these categories later. But it's just items that are right there near the register where a person standing in line, or a person waiting for somebody using the restroom, or a person grabbing something to drink can kind of walk around and see it. And then, of course, it's close to the register where somebody as a cashier can also, you know, suggest, like Jimmy said, like, hey, if you take a look over there, that's some new, you know, Christmas product we just got in, or Halloween product, or, a novelty product. It's right there, signed, ready to go. Another business we really started getting into is Halloween and Christmas and Easter, more from a giftable standpoint, more so than, the traditional just straight up candy. So last Halloween, that was a shipper we received from a company with a bunch of different novelty wearables and such. Um, we only had it in a handful of stores because I wasn't sure, you know, exactly. So again, I wasn't sure, wasn't sure what to do. I brought it into a couple stores, you know, and we did about like $9,000 in like 2 months, and I'd say maybe 5 stores. And with minimal markdowns, because just we were able to do aggressive pricing, and they kept it near the register. The associates were excited to see the product, so they were suggesting it. Hey, look at what we got this year. This is new. We never had this before. So again, it's kind of like amping up your staff to be excited about it, because if they're excited about it, your customer is going to be excited about it.
Right. And we're going to tell you a little bit how to find Halloween product and when you should buy it later on in the presentation. Uh, Maria, I think.
Yeah. So cross merchandising, this was always drilled into my head from my past life and past company. We were very big with cross merchandising. And one of the things that was ingrained in my brain, and I'm now trying to ingrain in the brains of the stores that we have in our company, is when you're cross merchandising, whether it's clip strips, it's side wings, We're even going up now in risers above the gondolas. Whatever it may be, it should be something that's extra that you're basically telling the customer to buy without having somebody telling them, standing there telling them to buy it. And it should be something additional, not something that they are going to choose between. So for example, I always say, is it a this and that, or is it a this or that? So if you had a section, of different, let's just say we're going to go into the food items. If you had a bunch of chips in an area, you don't want to clip strip another chip. You'd want to clip strip something that would go with a chip. So if we're going to go gen merch, maybe it's a bag clip, or something to that nature. But you'd want to make the customer think like, oh, I need that too, not, oh, look at this. Oh, I'd rather that. So that's something, again, trying to ingrained in my brain. I'm trying to ingrain in everybody else's. Be really strategic when you're, cross merchandising, because that little item, even if it's a low priced item, if you get one in one every other bag or one every 5 bags, that's an extra how many dollars a day that you didn't have, because you're telling the customer in a way they need that as well. And again, I know, with payrolls tight, and you don't always have people that can just sell throughout the store. Have some of your merchandising strategies sell for you.
Perfect. So this is a little bit what we're going to talk about is choosing the right gift. I think that's real important. We see a lot in the travel centers. Everybody always gravitates toward toys, but we're going to talk about personalization gifts, luxury gifts. You can have higher price items and how you do that. Handmade crafts, novelty gifts. So we're going to talk about that. One of the things that I think is real important when you pick these is you look at the demographics of the people. A lot of times we put in kids, but then we don't have something for the women or men. And the one category that really gets left off is the tweens, that 13 to 18-year-old group, both boys and girls. A lot of people, when you walk into your store, go, do I have something for that category? And if you don't, that's a missing revenue stream that you could be picking up.
Definitely important to stay on trends too. Social media, love it or hate it, that's where you're going to get a lot of them. Also, if you're very social, media adverse, and I totally get that. I feel like sometimes I'm only on it just to see stuff. But I also have a younger son who helps me out with a lot of the trends, but also just reaching out to a peer network. At the end, you'll have all of our information, which we'd be happy to like share with you anything we see, but just, reaching out and seeing, what's out there, what's trending, and what's popular, to make sure you're also on that trend as well, because you don't want to be behind and be stuck with something that's not really to date. And like Jimmy said, like there's so many different variations. Everybody does go to toys because they feel like it's the safest. And it's a great, product line to have in your store. But there are so many other things that you wouldn't believe appeal to a travel plaza or a convenience store customer that fall within all of the rest of them on this page, even down to luxury gifts. And when we say luxury, it doesn't always mean it has to be, a $100 item. It's just an item that just looks and feels more luxurious than something you would think you would get at a travel plaza or a convenience store.
So personalization, um, one of the things about personalization is that it has a higher perceived value. So a good example is a mug. So you can buy any kind of mug anywhere, any mass store all over. You can get a mug for $5.99, $6.99. But a mug that has your name on it, you might pay a little bit more for. And a good indication to show you how important personalization is look at Coca-Cola, one of the biggest companies in the world, and they are putting names on Coke cans. And I'm sure a lot of you have seen people digging through the Cokes looking for their names. So we feel that's really important, shows you how driven the customer is to have something personalized with their name on it.
And something else personalization does too is it makes the customer browse. So, instead of just kind of scanning something real quick and going, oh, I'm not interested in that, you again have a silent seller for you. A customer walking over is going to start perusing through something to see if they can find their initial or find their name or find the initial or name of a loved one. So it's almost forcing them to kind of stay a little bit longer and look at the kind of the selection of products you have and potentially buy something.
Um, eco-friendly, a lot of things. So with eco-friendly, it doesn't really mean it has to be biodegradable or different things. It could just be things that they can buy that helps them reuse over and over again. So, drink glasses or something like that. Those are all helping because it's not a disposable thing. This is in a lot of people's minds, it goes along with organic. So if you're doing fresh food, organic food and things like that, these fit right along with those customers that are buying that food. And that's a good way to match your GM merchandise with your food and products that you're promoting in your travel center.
Absolutely.
So luxury. So this one's a good one to address because I've seen travel centers sell $300 cowboy hats. I've seen all kinds of things in travel centers. And a luxury item in your travel center can just be something that's a little bit indulgent for the customer. Doesn't mean it has to be $100, like Maria said. It can just be something that's indulgent. It could be a jewelry box that someone just buys and it's 19.99. It just allows them to do a luxury for themselves. So things like that, a little specialty chocolate, a homegrown jelly that you've brought in and it's a gourmet food. Little things like that. Those are all luxury items just to help increase your basket size. Maria?
Yeah, I kind of feel like even I would even put in here like a local products and local feels. We were really trying, we have one location that has local product and it does incredibly well. Now, again, it's not for everybody. It does require space. But if you feel like you have an area where, it's well, obviously we're travel plazas, but if you have an area that, we're close to Scranton, where this place is. Oh, about The Office. So that kind of plays into something, although I've never seen the show. Um, but, you know, there's a lot of things you can kind of look that are have a local feel. And whether they're edible or just a giftable, you'd be surprised when people are traveling by, they would pick it up, even though it may be a little bit more expensive than something they would buy in the grocery store, but it's more of a keepsake and it appears more luxurious than that you would get like walking into Walmart for something. So I'd also like to add, here, I always like to talk about local because local has, it's just, it has a different feel to it. And again, it kind of feels like a souvenir.
Nostalgia and retro. I think this is a great category, and this will get people to spend time in your travel center. Just an extra minute or two pause in the store could mean other family members are buying things. But retro really means I remember that. Or I used to have something that was similar to this. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the Lone Ranger uh lunchbox, but just a small cup that has a animal on it and go, oh, I used to have a cup like that that had an animal on it. Those are things that make people pause, look, say how cute. And if you can make people pause, a lot, a large percentage of those people will make a purchase. And that adds to your basket size again.
Absolutely. And, I'm sure a lot of you have been reading that nostalgic candy and snacks and such are becoming very popular right now. So this kind of plays off of that, seeing that influx of customer looking for that nostalgic candies kind of plays into they're probably also looking for something else, like Jimmy said, like, oh, I used to have that, or I used to eat this. So it's very big trend right now and definitely something, to really look into for your stores.
So one of the things we did talk a little bit is about the basket size and pricing and how how does all that work together? So it's great in your store to have a mixture of price points. You need to have something that's kind of quick and economical, but it's all right to have that 14.99, 19.99 price. Um, the other thing is that it's real important that you have price signs. You can
Mhm.
go to your big box retailers and get ideas like Kohl's. They have very few people because their signage does everything. So people want to walk up because they may look at the product and say, "Oh, I bet that's really expensive." But if you have a nice sign, they go, "Oh, that's only 19.99. I'm getting that." So pricing and signage is huge in this part.
It's incredibly important. I don't know about any of you, but I feel like it wasn't that long ago that you walk into a gas station or a travel plaza and you would just aimlessly pick stuff and throw it in hold it and throw it on the counter. You had no cares in the world how expensive it was because while it may be a little bit more expensive than a big box retailer, it is what it was. Nowadays, that's not so much the case. With everything the economic climate right now, it is so, so important to have things priced and signed. Again, it also will help the customer decide whether or not they're going to buy it, more so to buy it, because without a price maybe they don't want to go looking for somebody to find out the price but if they know what it is, they just grab it, take it to the register. So I can't stress enough the importance of pricing and signage right now. Also, too, just to kind of talk about pricing, there's so many different ways to make sure your pricing fits not only your margins, but it's also going to help your turnover. Yes, I know we're not Walmart and Dollar General. We don't we're not that massive, but we're not Saks Fifth Avenue either. We're there's a middle ground to meet. And if whether you work direct or you work with distributors, there's always ways to find things at a better price. Especially distributors always have closeouts or special buys to kind of help bring in something maybe you wouldn't necessarily bring in at a cheaper price so that you can actually, or a cheaper cost, I should say, so you could charge a cheaper price. And then again, working direct with DSD vendors so many of them are more than willing to work on things to get you to where you need to be. So don't be afraid to reach out and just entertain that because it's out there for you. So it doesn't scare you into ordering anything within the general merch or giftable world.
Um, this is some more points on the high price points versus low price points. We'll go over a few of these that we think are um, how I want to say help the travel centers. And when we say a high price point and a low price point, that doesn't mean it has to be 9.99 and 39.99. Low price point can be 9.99 and the higher price point could be 12.99. But anything to help you get that higher price point. The other thing is in this climate where you may have less customers, sometimes getting a few higher price point items sold where you don't have to depend upon volume like you on lower price can really help you drive some gross revenues that you need to make up because traffic might be slower in this economy. Anything on those, Maria?
No.
Okay. These are just some more items we're talking about. Higher price points. You'll have to look at slower inventory. It's not going to move as quick. A 14.99 item is not going to move as quick as a 9.99 item. And if you're picking the right selection, so all those are factors that you have to look at how much inventory you need and how much you're going to need in the future and how much you can store in your back room.
And I think here it's also incredibly important that you're working with vendors just to help you with your assortments and what your pricing and cost should be. Unfortunately, there's people out there that are just looking to make a fast buck, and I don't want to say there's a lot of them, but I'm sure they're out there. And they're not really looking for that long-term relationship with you. But those who are willing to do that, they're going to help you. They're going to talk to you and ask you questions to figure out what you're trying to achieve. And because they want to work with you for longer than, the 5 minutes of fame to get their product in the door and then they kind of leave. So, you may come across those people and it's okay. You just move on, but don't let that discourage you in case you have already encountered those people and you're like, oh, forget it. I don't ever want to do that again. That's not everybody. There are so many great, DSC vendors and even, reps that work for distribution companies that are more than happy to help you for the long term. They're in it for the long haul. They're in the for the marriage versus, the date. So
These are just some recommendations that we put together for everybody to kind of use as a resource when you're looking at your high price points, focus on the branding, exclusivity, the customer experience, how are you doing your signing? Sometimes on a higher price item, you could do a bigger sign and that will draw attention and make people think, oh, this must be a really good deal. Look how big that sign is. It's a psychological thing. Whereas lower price points, it's a quick decision. You don't have to have that. If you put it on special or something, then you might do that. So when you go in and you're in Walmart and you're all these mass retailers, you look at how they do their signage, will tell you what they're doing and making you feel like it's a great deal. So you can have something that you sell at $29.99 and it's a high price point for you, but you can make it feel economical for the consumer, just how you do your signage and approach things and merchandise it.
absolutely.
So we wanted to see if anybody had any questions when we're with this before we jump into some resources and talk about that.
Yeah, I'll say just at any point here, you can drop your questions in the Q&A at the bottom. We can handle them at the end, but just a prompt for if you have any questions for the team here.
So this is a little bit we want to talk about some of the trends that are happening in the travel centers and where do you go how do you go find that product for those trends? So that's kind of the resource part here. So um you know we all want to make extra margin. Those opportunities are out there. Maria is a good example. She knows you have to look for them, you have to ask for them, but they are out there. um, we also know that you only have like 30 minutes when that person's fueling, they're coming into the store. So you have some time to capture. But again, we go back to the signage and shopping can be a little bit of entertainment. So you have 30 minutes. So that's capture those people. And then what are those key components? Anything on that, Maria, or you?
I wanted to, and maybe, I kind of should have mentioned earlier, but I feel like I wanted to mention here another trend, and I think this is why, a lot of, over time, I feel that, we went from being called truck stops now to travel plazas. Well, why are we travel plazas and travel centers? Because we want to kind of, make it feel like anybody, myself traveling alone, myself with my family, we're also stopping there, not just your truck drivers. And while it's important, incredibly important to be, servicing our truck drivers with, making sure there's food, there's, if there's showers, if you happen to have a laundry, and having a nice selection of product for them that they may need. I think it's also important to make sure you have a healthy assortment for all of the other travelers that are coming into your stores. And, one of the thing I feel is that, there was a really big stigma that everything in a travel plaza had to be male dominated and male specific. And I don't know about you, but I've been seeing, a lot of female truck drivers nowadays. And again, just from that average, female traveling by herself, or, mom coming in with her family, it's important to also remember, again, Jimmy talked about the tween, age group that's missing. Here's where I add, the female demographics also missing. So, something with my Q lines that we did here is there's a lot of female driven products on it, between, just novelties, or, just different items that a female would use. A lot of people were like, what are you doing? But surprisingly, and kind of where I knew it would be, it actually did incredibly well. And then, just again, having that healthy assortment, but don't forget, certain demographics, certain genders, certain age groups, make sure you're encompassing everybody, not just one. That's my soapbox about female items.
And I think that's important. One of the things that we hear a lot of the travel center shows is the number one request is a trucker will come in and go, "Can I get a ride somewhere else?" That's telling you we don't have that product that they're looking for, and it could be pet related, it could be gift related. I mean, those guys are working all the time and don't have anywhere to go to buy a gift, to take a birthday gift, take something back to the wife, family, mother, whatever it may be. And them having a nice selection and it not looking like it came from a travel center is a huge plus. You'd really be surprised how much your revenue can grow just by having products that the truckers are not used to seeing and want to purchase, and they can take it back and feel proud about what they're giving back to that loved one. Next. Okay. Let's jump into the resource. So one of the
The
things,
most important part.
yeah. So we feel this is like one of the most important things that we can give you here in this webinar is when to buy this product. If you're doing Christmas, any of these major holidays, and if you're buying product for the holidays, we say that you should stay with the major ones first. Don't We think Valentine's can be a pitfall, and we can give you some suggestions how you do that. But like when you're buying Christmas, that Christmas product is sold in December, January, and February before the Christmas. If you're buying Christmas product in September, you're buying old leftover Christmas, what that company could not sell, and you're not getting the freshest, you're not getting the best product. If you buy it in January and February before Christmas, you're getting that. Valentine's Day. If you do want to buy stuff for Valentine's Day, it's all sold in July before Valentine's Day, and it will ship in December. That is the best product you're going to find. When you do Valentine's Day, buy things that are red. It doesn't have to say Valentine's Day on it, but if you buy red things that say that or have love, those things can carry over and you can sell those as everyday product. Mother's Day, if you're buying that, that's pretty much the January before Mother's Day is when that is introduced. Father's Day is a January introduction. And what we want to tell you, if you want to buy for a certain holiday, where it be Easter or something, because your store can take advantage of that, it's always 6 to 9 months if you want to buy it. And companies are making it made to order. So when you have Easter product and you can buy it a month before there, that's because somebody canceled their order and they had a little bit left over, because the companies are not taking a risk on inventory for any of these holidays.
No. And I can tell you guys, there's some holidays, like Jimmy said, if you've never dabbled in general merchandise or giftable items in any holiday, stick with the top ones. I will tell you that. Sometimes even the top ones might not stick. Surprisingly, and maybe it'll be different this year, I don't know, but Halloween and Easter do really well for our company, but for some odd reason, Christmas does not. I don't know why. Maybe it was just a one-off last year. But it's okay if something doesn't stick. And you don't have to keep forcing it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Another thing to keep in mind too when it comes to holidays is making sure Jimmy mentioned, for Valentine's Day, have red items. Just make sure you have giftable items in stock, period. Because just because something, it's Christmas time, I'm not always going to buy something that's Christmassy for a gift, but if I saw a jewelry box or if I saw, a little novelty lucky gnome, or if I saw something that would be, oh my God, that's a great gift for somebody, I would grab that, not necessarily a Christmas ornament. So it is important to always make sure your giftables that you carry all the time are in stock. If you've never dabbled in the holidays before, what I can tell you is your best data to use is your seasonal candy, because I'm sure a lot of you already carry seasonal candy. Go based off of that. If you see stores that really spike, selling Halloween candy, well, perhaps they'd be stores you can entertain, buying more Halloween novelties or giftables, or same thing with Christmas, same thing with Easter. So use something you already know and know really well and kind of build off of that. Because I can tell you again, not coming from this type of industry and being in a store that really focused on seasonal and Gen Birch, it was quite a transition to try and understand these customers. And I did it just by running, doing my homework. And sometimes it can be daunting, especially, depending on the type of programs you have to run reports. I know mine can become very, very overwhelming because of the systems that we have, but it's in the long run, your homework's going to help you make the best decision based off of what your customers are telling you based on its sales. So just make sure, you look at that and don't be afraid that something's going to tell you where to go. And you don't have to just kind of go by the seat of your pants. And again, don't be afraid if not everything sticks. If Christmas doesn't stick, it doesn't stick. By Easter, by Halloween, it's okay.
So one of the things we want to help you do is go, okay, I want to get into some of these new products. I want to go out and search for new vendors. And so where do I go? So these are where the major shows are. This is where you're going to find the best product. You're going to find from Christmas ornaments to patio furniture. So when you're walking down the hallways, you're going to bump into Kohl's, you're going to bump into Walmart, Buc-ee's. So if you want to see what Buc-ee's is doing, they're going to these shows. And this is where they're going to buy their merchandise. So anybody has a fantastic gift department in their travel center, they've visited one of these shows in the past. So in Dallas, they have the Dallas Market Center. It's twice a year. Atlanta is the premier gift show. If you want to go to that one, it's 3 buildings, 22 stories high with temporaries, all of it, more stuff than you could walk in 3 days for sure. It'd take you more than a week to go through everything. Same with Las Vegas. Now there's 2 other shows. There's a souvenir show in Las Vegas that happens in September. That is where you're going to find every souvenir place that will put the name of your truck stop on a keychain, glass, stuffed animal, lollipop, whatever you want. That's where all that product is made. And then the second one is in November. It's the IGS show, and that is in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. The difference between the Las Vegas and Pigeon Forge, Las Vegas is in one huge, massive convention center. Pigeon Forge is in 3 different convention centers, and they have buses running. So you'll go from Sevierville, Tennessee to Pigeon Forge to Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and it's 3 smaller things. But I would say one thing, being in the Rockies in November is absolutely beautiful. So you want a little vacation, that's a nice place to go. Now, one of the things we put together here on for the shows is we put every one of the shows here. We're going to give you the link to get to every one of these shows so you can go and register. So there's a couple of things that are going on with this. One is when you attend these shows, you need to make sure you have to have your tax ID with you. They want to know that you are actually able to buy wholesale and resale. You'll need a business card that shows that matches with your tax ID. And the other thing to prep for this is you need to have a 1-page credit sheet that says, here's my bill to address, here are my credit references, my tax ID, everything like that. Because when you go to buy, that company you buy from is going to ask for that information. Now, one of the things I want to do is you don't have to buy thousands of dollars, and Maria can actually tell about that. Some companies have a opening order of $250, $500, $750. That's pretty much the range between $250 and $750. Maria, anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think that's probably the first thing a lot of people get nervous about going to some of these shows is because again, like Jimmy mentioned, you're gonna be bumping into people from, Walmart, Colt, like all of these big bucks, and you're like, what am I doing here? You have every right to be there. Number one. Number two, yes, the minimum buys are sometimes incredibly low. And I'll tell you what, even right now,
Yeah.
you'd be surprised with the whole issues, like anybody's trying to make a sale. And if you're again, costs might be a little up because of tariffs, but I actually met a vendor. I went to ASD, which actually was not listed on here, but could potentially be another general merchandise show. Met a vendor out of Hong Kong. Got an entire line of our own etched. They look like Yeti tumblers, actually, 3 different sizes, with our logo. Direct shipped from the company, and the minimum order was next to nothing. Now, with the tariffs, the price bumped up a little bit. Actually, it wasn't as bad as I thought. But when she originally told me what the minimum order was, I was like, "Are you serious to have it shipped from China?" So you'd be surprised at how willing people are willing to negotiate minimum buys. It doesn't mean you have to buy a ton of it. And whether you're buying one lump sums of items that you're able to distribute, and like, listen, we don't have a DC in our company. We have some storage facilities we can keep things in. You're also going to meet vendors like Jimmy and Diane who they could set up shipping direct to stores, so you don't have to worry about being a delivery person. So there's so many options out there. So don't let any, minimum buys or how am I going to get it out to my stores? That all can be figured out, once you have conversations with vendors.
Yeah, and one thing I would say to that minimum order with the travel centers, you have so many more people coming into your travel center than a Hallmark store. And if a single Hallmark store can go in there and meet minimum orders with daily traffic of 50 people, you can
That's
meet minimum orders that they do. So
yeah, for sure.
So one of the other things that we wanted to add to this is like, okay, how do I stay on top of the trends and get assistance? One, there's a lot of magazines, email newsletters that you can sign up for. A lot of them are free. So like there's the Gift Beat magazine, it costs you $10.75 per month. Or you can sometimes you can sign up and they'll give you 3 months free. There's a gift in the souvenir magazine. It's free. All you have to do is go out there and register, and once a month you'll get that magazine. So a lot of them are free, and they all have newsletters that you can definitely get once a week. It'll say, here's the hot items for this week, or this was what's hot at the Las Vegas show, Atlanta show. And the other thing is Chat GPT. If you're not using that for some resources, that can help you a lot. You just put in there and go, what are the top 10 trends in drinkware? It'll give it to you right there.
Amazing. It's amazing what AI has come to. Another thing too, for anybody who's questioning, I was talking about local a little bit earlier. A resource that's pretty good, especially when you have stores all over, different states, different areas. Reach out to your local chamber of commerce. They can actually give you a lot of resources and different contacts that can help you find local items that would fit in your store. So just wanted to throw that one in there too.
Good one. Yeah.
Yep. We did put a link in here for fair.com too. That is another one where you can You know, if you have product in Pennsylvania or Texas, you can narrow your searches down to just products in Texas on Fair, and they'll show you all the companies that have jewelry in Texas or whatever it may be. So that's another good resource.
Absolutely.
So here's a little bit about how you can get to know us. One of the things that we would like to offer, if any of you, you'll have our contact information. If any of you would like to attend any of these shows and you call us before that show, say, hey, I'm attending. If you make an appointment with us, you can come into the show and we will put together a guide of like the top 10 showrooms you should go to find products. We give you a map of where they're located, all of that. You just come to our location and we'll put all of that together for you. And it'll make it easy, especially your first time there. If you go to these shows, they can be overwhelming because there's so much stuff. So you kind of need to know, let me start with the best showrooms first, because in one showroom, you could spend 2, 3, half a day in one showroom. There is so much product to look at. So we'll try to narrow that down so it's not so overwhelming. We can also help direct you on the websites. There's where you can get hotels, which hotels have bus transportation, all of those things. And some of these shows will even offer, if you tell them it's your first time to go to the show, they may offer you some incentives like a free hotel night. So there's a lot of ways to save money because they're all fighting to get your attention and bring you to the show.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna jump into some questions here from the group. So we have a question from Jane Hines. She says, we sell a wide variety of novelty and general merch. With the tariff climate now, do you think ordering way ahead is good buying? So can you guys give some insights on that?
So it's funny you say that. I actually just got an email before I hopped on this call from a company I ordered actually some of the Halloween merchandise you saw in the picture. And their message to me was, you pre-booked this so early. We are having tariff issues. Prices are going to increase, but you locked in a good price. So you're good to go. But I do think you should still be doing these because who knows what it could be. Like this could be the worst or it could be the best. We don't know. But to be on the safe side, if it's merchandise you need and you want, you think it's going to grow your business, you don't know what can happen in the future. You might as well lock in your price now because who knows what it can be in the future. So it's so funny because I literally just got an email saying, I was like, whoo, thank God I did that early.
Yeah. I can tell you from being in a lot of, I don't want to groups with different manufacturers, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of manufacturers that are not bringing containers over, and they're going to eventually run out of stock because they're holding all their product, hoping this will get resolved. I will tell you one thing that I think is going to be true is there will be a supply chain disruption, and it'll be like COVID when everything was trying to come in and boats were sitting outside. That's going to happen because so many companies and mass retailers are holding containers, hoping this will get resolved within 3-4 weeks. And then when it does get resolved, everybody's going to be bringing in everything at once. So I think you have to plan for that. You have to plan if someone's going to run out of stock, and then you have to work with manufacturers like what we're doing. We're bringing everything in. We have a plan. We're holding our prices. We're doing that so we're able to supply. So it's all across the board, and I think you have to talk to each vendor and ask them, what's your plan? How are you handling things? And then make your decisions how important that product is to you.
Absolutely. And it's dialogue. It's so important, to have that open dialogue with whoever you're buying product from. And again, going back to that long-standing relationship, if you have that with a vendor, they're going to be willing to, talk you through it and make the best decision, what's for you, what's for both of you, et cetera. So absolutely have that open dialogue with everybody.
So that was a fantastic question, Jane. Thank you for asking
Yes.
that. If anybody else has a
Excellent question.
yeah, drop them in. Okay, I do have a follow-up question that relates to that. So, there's this kind of difference between I don't know, quote unquote, normal seasonality schedule and one that is dealing with uncertainties of tariffs and possible shortages, that type of thing. Regardless, how do I best work? So if I'm a travel center, how do I best work with my partners to reduce any costs of carrying any of that seasonal inventory? And I think both from the H&H and Maria, your background, I think both would have some really good insights on that.
Go ahead, Maria. I'll let you. Or
You go, let me think about this one for a second. Jimmy, go ahead.
well, what you're asking, Andrew, is if you're buying seasonal stuff, how do you avoid the tariff question coming out if you're buying that ahead of time? Correct? Is that what you're kind of?
Yeah, just in general, the costs of carrying that seasonal inventory. So,
Okay.
if I don't want to purchase too many items
Right.
for the season, especially with those timeframes that you gave earlier in the presentation. Sometimes we're 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months ahead of the season when we're placing our orders.
Right.
What do I
Right.
do
Right.
to best mitigate that with my partners?
Yeah, see, now that I think of it, I think it's like a two-sided it kind of depends on where you're at with buying seasonal. Like if you're somebody who buys seasonal all the time and you know your stores and you know the customers and you know the assortment. I mean, me personally, I wasn't afraid to go after what I think and even kind of built on to it, knowing that. Now, if you're not really um, used to buying it, I think you should be very careful and cautious. You don't have to bet the farm on a holiday, to prove anything. It just step in the water, order a few products, maybe order a small shipper or a small CU and see what it does. If it runs out, great. You sold through it. Did you lose sales? Well, technically, yes, but technically, no, because if you didn't have it, you wouldn't have had any of those sales. So I think it just depends on where you're at with buying seasonal. And that's my whole take on it. If you're used to it, then do what you think you need to do. Otherwise, just be very careful and cautious and see what it does.
Right. So the best way for me to explain that for people to do is you have to understand seasonality, and each seasonality operates different, and then what kind of product you're buying. If you're buying kind of decor stuff like ornaments and things like that, everybody who buys that is buying it to put on their tree and decorate and enjoy. So everybody starts getting their Christmas trees out November 1st. And then after Thanksgiving, 1st of December, your Christmas tree is pretty much decorated and done. So you'll see Christmas sales like ornaments and everything go September, October. November, they really peak, and then after Thanksgiving, it's downward trend. And you saw that in some of the shops you worked at, Maria, and then
Oh
they
yeah.
do. If it's consumables like candy and stuff, that'll keep on going right through Christmas. So that has a different arc than things that you enjoy. So Christmas, that's why you see it out September 1st in Lowe's and all those places, because people buy it and think about how they're going to decorate. So depending what you buy dictates that. Halloween is a different arc. Halloween goes all the way up to Halloween, because something you buy for Halloween, you're hitting the ultimate decoration and what you're doing to that one day. So it arcs a little bit differently than like Christmas. And I think Easter and those days, they're more of a straight line right to the day and then fall off
Yeah.
completely.
They kind of just kind of buy right to the holiday versus Christmas, which is like you said, where I came from, it was a very big Christmas store. That arc was perfect, Jimmy. You're looking for your decorating prior to, I love how you said November 1st. In my house, it's like October 1st.
Right.
My husband's a Christmas freak. But you're looking to decorate by the time you get to like Thanksgiving weekend, maybe the weekend after, it like just drops off. I mean, you're gonna have stragglers. Then it goes like full-blown giftable season because
Right.
now everybody's like, okay, we're decorated. Now we gotta go buy presents. So yeah, it just really depends. But like you said, the stocking stuff, but at the same time, your kind of stocking stuff or little trinkets or your candies, they're gonna probably go to the end. I mean, I'm while I try to be as proactive as possible with something, say as Christmas, as just an individual consumer, I'm still the person like, the 2 days before, like, oh my God. And if you see something, you grab it real quick. It's like almost like an impulse by like, ooh, that would be great in, so-and-so's stocking, or oh my God, that would be great to tie on somebody's package. So, from that kind of product, like stocking stuff or little toys, little trinkets and candy, yeah, you can go that straight line all the way to, Christmas Day.
Yeah, and we probably got to think about who our customers are. So, like, truckers don't have a lot of free time to get out and buy stuff. So, they're always going to buy some things probably last minute and go, oh my gosh, these, it's got all my kids' names on it, these ornaments. Let me get this and I'll put it on the Christmas tree when I get in. Because they don't have time to go out and shop like some of us do and have the availability of a car and go at our lunch break.
Okay, only other question that we have is, can you please share the presentation with us? So, yes, we will get that to everybody that registered for this presentation. Are there any parting words from H&H or Maria?
No, I'd like to thank NATSO for putting this on and hope we gave some great information that will help everybody.
Yeah, and I just like to say thank you to NATSO and H&H for asking me to join. I am super passionate about merchandise. Gen Merch is always the center of my heart, even though I have a whole center store to also deal with as well. But I really enjoy just helping anybody when it comes to navigating. And even if I don't have an answer, we can figure out an answer together, or we can find somebody who can get us an answer. But feel free definitely to reach out if you have questions.
All right, thanks everybody for joining.
Thanks.
Thank you. Have a great day, guys.
Bye.